right in the middle of the conference in their first year here. I think Frank Haith can take him somewhere, but remains to be seen. East Carolina. Jeff Lebo comes into his 5th year as the head coach of the East Carolina program. Last year they were invited to College Insider Tournament where they lost in the first round. Akeem Richmond is gone, Peter Torak is gone, and Brandon Stith transferred to Old Dominion. Akeem Richard is the biggest loss out of that guy. He formerly played for University of Rhode Island. He was one of the premier three-point shooters, recording the most three-pointers among all college players last season, and he averaged 18.4 points per game. So he's a big loss, but they've got some important players back. Caleb White is back, Paris Roberts-Campbell. Caleb White had a big impact as a freshman last year. Paris Roberts-Campbell enters his senior year after a breakout season last year. So this team has some talent. Lance Tejada is from California. Sleeper point guard recruit, very much a sleeper. Has a chance to be good. The question is how good. It'll remains to be seen. But I like him. I think he can be a talented player. But ECU is going to need, coming over from Conference USA, where they finished in 12th. I think it'll be tough for them to finish in the top half of this conference. We look at the schedule. Green Bay is not the same team they used to be, but playing them in Florida, I guess it's kind of a toss-up. They visit UNC. I would be very surprised if they win that game. They visit UNC Wilmington. The rest of the schedule is not too difficult. Central Connecticut, Greensboro, Florida A&M, UNC Asheville. A couple of Division II teams in North Carolina Wesleyan and Virginia Lynchburg. Team has talent. I'm going to say this. Every single team in this conference has talent. Whether they can put it together is another question. East Carolina, I don't know. I think this team needs a couple years. Jeff Lebo's a good coach, but it's the first year in the conference, so competing might be a tall task. On to the team projected to finish 9th in the conference. Donnie Jones enters his 5th year as the head coach of UCF. Has recorded 3 winning seasons, but only 4-14 in conference play last season after coming over from Conference USA. Isaiah Sykes, who is clearly the leader of this team, he's gone. He's playing in Serie A2 for an Italian team. Obviously, he's a big loss. 17 points per game last year. He was the leader of this team. Tristan Spurlock is gone, averaged 11 points per game. Calvin Newell is gone. Eugene McCrory was a role player, and he transferred to Division II school. This team had some talent. The top returning scorer is Casey Wilson, and I'm not sure how much of a player Casey Wilson's going to be. Adonis Enriquez is a player I really like. I think he can start as a freshman. B.J. Taylor, also from Orlando, kind of a sleeper prospect in terms of athleticism. I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them play well this year, but Adonis Enriquez could be a very good player. But they did have a very talented center recruit who I'm blanking on the name of, who turned away and went, I believe, to one of the Oklahoma schools. So that was a loss for them. Looking at the non-conference schedule, I don't see anything too difficult. They visit Florida State, but other than that, they've got Stetson, Upstate, Davidson, Bethune-Cookman, Georgia Southern, Florida Atlantic, Detroit, Illinois Chicago, and Southeastern Louisiana. All but 2 of those games are at home, the Florida State game and the Illinois Chicago game. Didn't want to beef up a tough schedule, obviously, because they're not a very good team. But Donnie Jones, I think, I'll talk about him in a little bit. He needs results this year. With an easy non-conference schedule, they need to get some conference wins. They have chances, obviously, against Memphis, UConn, SMU. They need to get some good conference wins in order to make a run at the tournament. I just don't see it this year. Now, their neighbor, South Florida, they were going to bring in Steve Masiello from Manhattan, and that would have been a great hire. But there was worry that he didn't complete his degree at Kentucky. So He had to go back, complete his degree, and they hired another player from Kentucky, Orlando Antigua. I like Orlando Antigua, head coach of the Dominican national basketball team? I think so. Yes, head coach of the Dominican national basketball team. Young guy, great recruiter. But let's be honest, you could put Brad Brownell, who head coach at Clemson, who's notoriously a really bad recruiter. You could put Brad Brownell at Kentucky, and he could pull an elite talent. Antigua obviously has a good recruiting style, but it just makes you wonder if you can pull in guys to South Florida. They've never been an elite program. They lost a lot this year. Multiple transfers. Victor Rudd, who is the star of this team, he graduated. Martino Brock, who was the floor leader, he also graduated. Corey Allen comes back. Chris Perry also comes back. The guy I really thought was a big loss was John Egbunu. And John Egbunu was a highly rated recruit who really stood out to me last year as a talented player. Didn't get a ton of playing time, but 7.4, 6.2 on 59% shooting, I'd say is pretty freaking good. He's gone. He transferred to Florida. Zach Leday is also gone. He didn't get a lot. He got about 15 minutes a game. He's gone to Virginia Tech. Josh Heath, who played 20 minutes a game but only averaged 2.6 points, off to Georgia Tech. Javante Hawkins, 3.7 points per game in 12 minutes, Eastern Kentucky. And Jordan Omogbehin, very rarely used player, transferred to Morgan State. Troy Holston comes in as a shooting guard from Oldsmar Christian in Tampa. Local guy, could be an impact player as a freshman, but obviously this team needs a couple years to get some work done. I like Antigua, but it just makes you wonder if players will ever really say, man, my dream is to play for the University of South Florida. This is a team that has some history, longtime member of the Big East, but, it'll be tough for this program to recruit consistently. They haven't made the tournament in many, many years. They didn't beef up the schedule this year. They visit NC State, they visit Alabama, and they've got they've got a neutral site game against Florida State. Other than that, the schedule's weak. They've got a home game against Seton Hall, but Seton Hall is not really a great team. They've got a Division II game. They've got a couple SWAC games. I understand not wanting to really beef up the schedule, but I would be surprised majorly if this team makes the postseason this year. I think they're a couple years away from any sort of postseason play. Antigua, obviously, a really good coach, but as I said, it's not really hard to pull in elite players when you're at the University of Kentucky. So it'll be interesting to see how he recruits this year. First year in the conference, and my prediction to finish last in the conference is the big ol' Tulane Green Wave. Finished 17-17, 8-8 last season. Top scorer, Mr. Lewis Dabney, comes back, averaged 15 points a game. Jonathan Stark, 14.5, he's also back. And Jay Hook at 13.9 is also back. You might be saying, all right, they've got 3 double-digit scorers back. Why are you picking them to not well? Well, they didn't get a good recruiting class. Keith Pinkney, okay player. I haven't really seen a lot of him. Think he has a chance to really... I don't know. He might have a chance to do something, but I think this team is going to be overmatched in the first-year competition. Ed Conroy's going to need some time. They lost a lot of their size. Didn't beef up on the real tough non-conference schedule. They've got a couple easy games. This is the stretch they have. Mississippi Valley State, Southern University at New Orleans, which isn't a Division I school, Southern University, Southeastern Louisiana, and Tennessee Tech. Home game against Mississippi State. Mississippi State is really bad, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them win that game. Away game at Washington, and then a neutral site game. Well, it's not really a neutral site game because it's like 5 minutes from St. John's Stadium, but a neutral site game against St. John's. And then they've got a home game against Wake Forest to kick off the year. So really, not the toughest schedule. I would expect this team to finish last in the conference if I had to make a guess. I don't have anything against them or anything, but I think they need some work in terms of time to go. Now I'm going to move on to my superlatives for the American Athletic Conference. The All-AAC team: Nick Moore, Ryan Boatwright, and Will Cummings at guard. Shaq Goodwin and Marcus Kennedy at forward. Nick Moore, obviously, I talked about, dynamic player for Southern Methodist. Really changes the game on both impacts. He's also my pick for American Athletic Conference Player of the Year. I really think he'll lead this team to a lot of success. And he's joined by Marcus Kennedy on the All-AAC team. Marcus Kennedy didn't have the greatest numbers last year, but with the losses for SMU in terms of front court depth, wouldn't be surprised to see him average 15-8, 15-9 coming into this season. Ryan Boatwright obviously has a chance to explode this year for UConn, even after a great year last year, now that Shabazz Napier's gone. Will Cummings, underrated guard at Temple. He'll do majority of the scoring there, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him rack up the points on a good amount of good percentage shooting. And then Shaq Goodwin. I debated between Shaq Goodwin and Austin Nichols, but Goodwin's older, more experienced, and more talented, so ultimately I picked him for the All-AAC team. Daniel Hamilton is my pick for Freshman of the Year. He's the highest-rated freshman coming in. He was a 5-star prospect who was downgraded to a 4-star, but, same difference. So he's really talented. And then Kevin Ollie, I think, is my Coach of the Year pick. And then for UConn, I think if they win the conference again, he kind of has to be, I guess. I don't really guess there's really anything else. Rodney Purvis from UConn, joining from NC State. My pick to be the impact transfer. And Donnie Jones, coach on the hot seat. As I said, 3 straight years of 20-plus wins, but he never made the NCAA tournament. Moving here last year, 4-14 conference record. UCF, not really a great basketball program, but they might not win a lot of games this year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Donnie Jones on his way out if the team posts another bottom half finish. So that's it for the American Athletic Conference. I'll run down the standings one more time. UConn, SMU, Memphis, Temple, Cincinnati, Houston, Tulsa, East Carolina, Central Florida, South Florida, and Tulane. When we come back from the break, I'll be talking the Mountain West Conference. All right, I'll see you guys when we get back from the break.
Kicking it. What are we kicking? A soccer ball. That's right, Infinity Sports Network now has its very own soccer show. Hosted by none other than Jake Leiker, Byron Tolson, and Noah Tabor. We bring you all the latest news on and off the pitch in the soccer world, whether it be the international or club level. Like us on Facebook at Kicking It. And don't forget to tune in once a week on Spreaker.com/Infinity Sports Network. Listen to us there.
All right, everybody, we are back here on College Basketball Talk. I'm your host, Miles Klotz. I talked about the American Athletic Conference in the first half of the show. This half of the show, I'm going to be talking about another, not a mid-major conference, I'd call them a major conference. This is a team that I really, really like. Not really a team, but a conference that I really like to watch, even if the games are a little bit late here on the East Coast. It's the Mountain West Conference. Down year last year compared to their fantastic 2012-13 season. But I think this conference is on the rise again this year. Couple good, really talented teams that are on their way up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this conference make a comeback as the top, not really mid-major conference, but also, I guess, chance to really be an impact team really be impact teams in the tournament. The team to watch here, and this is my predicted order of standings. Team to watch.